Welcome, everyone. Today, Ron McIntyre and I are going to discuss the topic of influence, the good and not so good aspects that are present in our work and personal lives. Thanks for joining us for this very brief discussion. We are both passionate about helping leaders become more effective in building and growing organizations for the 21st century. Ron, why don't you kick us off?
Thanks, Rob. Well, every day we get emails from online marketing talking about webinars, how to increase the ROI on your website, how do you use video to extend your campaigns, why are cabooses not on trains anymore? I mean, it's endless, the list of emails that we get. And that the goal of every one of those is influence us to open an email to do something with it. Well, influence plays a huge role in how successful these tags are for you and everyone else. But if it goes much deeper than just evaluating what emails to read, what videos to watch, it really comes down to, and it's critical for most of us, in terms of where does our business go? What do we do personally? How do we deal with the issues that we have in front of us every day? And that requires connection. So it's a very critical part of influence. Without communications and connections, we're talking at each other. Literally, that's all we're doing, and very little gets accomplished. Walls are constructed, silos are deployed, and ultimately isolation takes place. That's how critical it is. John Maxwell said, the true measure of leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, Rob, you're a specialist in relationship capital. How do they deal with and how do they embrace this idea of influence?
Well, let's step back a second. Kind of the vision of relationship capital, interactions, and of hyper trustworthiness. If you look at the way business has been run the last couple hundred years, it's been closed, selective, and controlling. The internet kind of busted that command control model. You need to be open. You need to be accepting of randomness, and you need to be supportive of everyone. So to me, influence and relationship capital go hand in hand, and relationship capital is really an open standard. It's about connecting with others and making commitments. What is a business? Getting stuff done is it's really a network of people making commitments to each other to deliver on those and fulfill on those commitments. So I don't think it's too much to say that we're kind of in a low ebb of trust right now in the world. I think it's because of multiple generations. It's because of technology, of transparency. It's not just what you say as a leader. It's how you act, how you connect, how you engender trust, how you deepen loyalty, how you keep your promises, and how you earn relationship capital that influences others to go on a trip with you that you want them to go on in order to accomplish your business's mission and purpose. And so relationship capital is really an open standard for acknowledging and rewarding those kept commitments and keeping score with credits and debits.
Very good. Well, we've isolated out some elements that we consider vital to this discussion of influence. Rob has discussed a couple of them. The first one that he mentioned is consistency. It's vital. Our ability to influence must start with and must always contain our accountability and our ability to be counted on for doing what we say we're going to do. This is a must to keep our commitments on a regular basis, else there will be no influence. Why would anyone want to be influenced by someone who doesn't keep their commitments? A second element that will discuss is expertise, experience, and knowledge. Do we bring something special to the table? When we talk about bringing value, that's where we have to operate from. As we bring expertise to the table, we're bringing value. The more we bring to the table, the better the value. And that's a critical part of being able to help each other grow and to empower others to grow, in addition to being self-driven. And the last one we're going to talk about today is that nasty one called self-discipline. Can we control our emotions? Can we control our tempers? Can we be trustworthy? How many meetings have you been in where the meeting has all of a sudden erupted in arguments, or people have left the room because they weren't satisfied with the discussion? These are all part of this whole idea of connecting. And how we apply these elements is vital for success in leading and in following. Now, our point of view is very different. In our point of view, influence is really a two-way street. It is not a one-way street as many think about, because if you think of it that way, typically you're going to wind up in a, I don't want to necessarily call it a manipulative situation, but you're very much on that path, because you have expectations that people are going to do what you tell them to do. Now, we've coined the term proactive win-win to develop the right attitude when dealing with influence. And it's our perception of what attitude needs to be, so it can be the foundation of everything that we talk about. This whole idea of making sure that each of the parties within the arrangement, or which in the agreement, depending which way you go, have a win factor involved. It is a valuable win factor for each and every one. And that's critical to any level of influencing, and particularly if you're going to think of it as intentional influencing, which we discuss about. Now, we will be discussing more of this in our upcoming webinar, 5 Ways to Supercharge Your Influence, scheduled for release in September 2014. But in addition to that, Rob, can the standard of trust assessment help a leader in the meantime to determine the course of action for his or her business?
Most definitely. It's pretty new, but the concepts are pretty grounded in social psychology, as well as organizational development and organizational learning. So the way we assess relationship capital, you kind of got to understand from an organizational standpoint what your baseline is. What's your current level of, and we use the term community, because to me, you mentioned silos. Silos are now a barrier to high performance for a company. You need people to cut across the silos and everyone respecting the various functions. And you know you're at a high level of community when you're in a meeting and you can't tell who's in what function. That to me is a good indicator of a high performing team. They respect each other. They come together. It's not about finance defending its turf, marketing, sales, operations. They come together to get stuff done. So the way we assess relationship capital is we ask 30 questions, basically around 4 attributes of relationship capital: competency, character, good intent, and proactivity. To your point about proactive win-win, I talked about this on social the other day. The level of trustworthiness, or the standard of trust leadership that I talk about, is the bar is being raised. You not only need to, you always should take care of your customer, your client, your employees, your partners, your stakeholders, but you now need to proactively look after their interests. If you want to distinguish yourself, distinguish your culture, build high-performing teams of high performance and purpose. So proactivity, good intent, you have to be competent, and you have to have integrity and character in all your interaction. And so I believe the questions we ask, if you go to standardoftrust.com, take the test, kind of give us your feedback, always welcoming to improve it. And you leaders out there who are running businesses or have a small business or a solopreneur, take it and see if it adds value, gives you a baseline of where you're at in your culture.
Thanks for sharing that, Rob. Now, to all of our listeners, we basically want to remind you that there are 5 steps that you can take to improve your ability to proactively and positively influence others. We will be discussing that in our seminar coming up. So be sure to watch for that. More information will follow. And we want to thank you for taking time to be with us today. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rod.